Love for a lifetime. And today we're going to look at just one verse, Ephesians 5, verse 33. It says, "Nevertheless, each individual among you also is to love his own wife, even as himself, and the wife must see to it that she respects her husband." Now, this is very much all about marriage, and I've tried to say, okay, I'm going to talk about love, but I'm going to make it much broader than just marriage. I want to talk to everybody, and I want everybody to feel included in the series. And I've tried to do that. You know, 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, we've talked about that, and we think, well, that's about love, so it's got to be about marriage. Well, 1 Corinthians 13 is in the middle of a discussion on spiritual gifts. He's talking about spiritual gifts right there. He's not really talking about marriage. But Ephesians 5, verses 22 through 33 is very definitely about marriage. But it is broader than that. And that's what I want to see. It's broader than that. It's about our relationship to Jesus. And he's saying that really marriage only makes sense in our relationship with Jesus. We need to look at it in a broader way, in a broader sense. The book of Ephesians, and we talked about this last time, the book breaks down into two parts. The first part, chapters 1 through 3, is doctrinal. It's about our new identity in Christ. And most of Paul's books, by the way, start off with a doctrinal dissertation. It starts off talking about doctrinal things. And the last half of his books are more practical. And the book of Ephesians is exactly like that. Chapters 1 through 3, here's what the blessings we have in Christ, this relationship we have now with God because of God's great mercy, because of his grace. And now this is what it means for us in a practical way. We are to walk in a certain way. We're to live in a certain way. And he starts talking about that we need to be filled with the Spirit. And what does it mean to live a Spirit-filled life? And he says, well, in verse 21 of chapter 5, it means that we are to be subject to one another. Each of us are to submit to one another. And Jesus, of course, is a great example of what it means to be a servant. He was a servant. And then he begins to say, well, now here's some examples of being a servant. Wives, be subject to your husbands as Lord. And then husbands, you love your wives as Christ loved you. And so we have these two big examples between wives and husbands. Marriage is one of God's greatest gifts, but it has a very deep spiritual significance because God has made us male and female. We are of equal worth. We are equal in value to God. He's made us male and female, which means we're different. We are very different. We have very different needs. There's a lot of books out on the market that talk about how different our needs are. There's the book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I mean, what it talks about is the differences between male and female and how different they are. And some talk about, well, men look through the blue lens towards life and women look through pink lenses, that everything is shaded by our gender, whether you're male or female. Some say, well, it's like languages. They speak one language, you speak another. Men speak one language, women speak another. It's like currency. We have one currency and they have a different currency. They're using foreign currency. They're using a foreign language. It's hard for us to understand. One of the books I like is Love and Respect by Emerson Eggerichs. And I have this book and I've enjoyed it. And if you want to know more about some of the distinctions between love and respect, I'd recommend this book. The Love She Most Desires and the Respect He Desperately Needs is the subtitles there. And so what we're going to look at today is this, that the husband and wife relationship to Christ changes the way we look at each other. It changes the way we treat each other. Our relationship with Christ, it's something really big. Our relationship with Christ changes the very way we look at each other in our marriages. And so we get back to Ephesians 5, verse 33, and it seems like he says something very simple. Each individual among you is to love his own wife, even as himself, and the wife must see to it that she respects her husband. Now, love and respect, you think, well, doesn't she need respect too? Why doesn't he say, husbands, respect your wives? Well, and why does it say respect the husband? Doesn't he need love too? Well, what Paul is recognizing here and what God has inspired him to mention is that we have two greatly different, deep-seated needs in our lives. Women desperately need love. And men, you need to learn how to love them. Men desperately need to feel respected. And ladies need to find out how to respect your husbands and what he's talking about. He's addressing this deep-seated need and desire that we have. She desperately needs to feel loved, and he desperately needs to feel respected. And he's mentioning this here. A love based on respect and a respect based on love. We have similar needs, but they are different. Did you realize that nowhere in Scripture does it directly tell the ladies that they are to love their husbands? Doesn't that sound strange? It doesn't say anywhere, ladies, wives, love your husbands. Nowhere. Never does it say, wives, agape your husbands. Now, some people say, well, what about there in Titus, the 2nd chapter, where it tells the older women to teach the younger women how to love their husbands and how to love their children? Well, some of you are more sophisticated Bible students who might appreciate this. There in Titus, the 2nd chapter, he says, I want the older to teach the younger women how to phileo their husbands, how to phileo their children. No, phileo. Not fillet, phileo, which means to be friends with them, how to be friends with their husbands, how to be friends with their children. Totally different word than agape, but very similar in some respects. But it does talk to husbands, and every time it talks to husbands, it says, husbands, I want you to love your wives. Now, one of the reasons that I think it doesn't talk to wives about loving their husbands is that that's just naturally what women do. It comes natural for women to love. I mean, that's the language they speak. They speak this love language. And so this is what they don't need to be taught this because that's just comes natural to them. And men need help in understanding what it means to love their wives. And at the same time, wives need a little help understanding what it means to respect their husbands. And so he's addressing this. I want wives I want the brother husbands to love their wives, and then I want the wives to see to it that they respect their husbands. And I want to look at one example today that might bring this home a little bit. It's found in an Old Testament story that we might be familiar with back in Genesis, the 29th and 30th chapters. And it's this great story of the love between Jacob and Rachel. One of the great stories in the Old Testament, this great love affair that they have, this love they have for one another. They're madly in love with each other. And of course, Jacob wants to marry Rachel, and he makes this arrangement with her father, and he says, you work for me for 7 years, and you can marry her. 7 years. And he does. He works for her for 7 years, and he loved her so much, he says it just felt like a few days. And then what happens? Remember, the father-in-law tricks Jacob. And instead of marrying Rachel, he finds himself with her older sister, Leah. And now he's married to Leah. And his father says, well, now, I'm not going to marry off the younger one first. You have to have the older one. But if you do want Rachel still, you'll have to work another 7 years, which he does. I mean, this is a great love story. I mean, he loves her so much that he would do almost anything for her. And so now he's married to Leah, and he's married to her sister Rachel. And Leah begins to have children, and Rachel doesn't. And in this culture, to not have children, this is really rough on a woman, to not have children, to be barren. And not only does Leah have children, she gives her handmaid to Jacob, and she has children too. And Rachel gives her handmaid, she has children. Everybody's having children, but Rachel's not having children. And Rachel, she is jealous of her sister, and she is hurt, and she is frustrated, and she confronts Jacob with this in Genesis the 30th chapter, verse 1 and 2. Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she became jealous of her sister, and she said to Jacob, give me children or else I die. Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? something very interesting happens here in this dynamic. Instead of comforting Rachel, he gets angry. Did you catch that? He gets angry. Was she really expecting Jacob to be in the place of God? Am I in the place of God? I can't believe. She needed him. She is crying out to him. She is in pain. She is hurting. She needed love and compassion and embrace. She needed her husband to come to her and say, you know, I understand. It's okay. Come here. You know, I love you. But that's not what he did. Because what he heard in her voice was criticism. He heard criticism and he became angry. And when husbands hear criticism, they feel disrespected. Somehow, Jacob felt disrespected. Who do you think I am? God? I'm not in charge. How could you disrespect me like this? Have nothing to do with this. And he is upset because there's a natural tendency for men who feel disrespected to act in an unloving way. And that's exactly what he does. He acts very unlovingly to her. He gets angry. She needs compassion. She needs love. She needs embrace. And he doesn't do that at all. Instead, he gets angry with her. Now, when a wife feels unloved, it's hard for her to respect her husband. And when a husband doesn't feel respect from his wife, he finds it hard to love his wife. Do you catch this? Because she desperately needs love, and when she's not feeling it, she has a hard time respecting him. And he desperately needs respect, and when he doesn't feel respect, then he finds it hard to love her. And, how can I get my husband to be more sensitive? How can I get my husband to be more loving and to be more caring? I just want him to love me a little more. I just want him to realize how much I need him. I want him to love me so much. And so she tries to motivate him to find out how to love him, and she seems to find a way by criticizing him, unfortunately, and complaining. And what he hears in the complaining is not, I need you to love me more. He hears disrespect. And then that disrespect gets him to be angry. He hears contempt and disrespect, and she is criticizing him out of love. I mean, she wants to help him, and all he hears is disrespect, and he withdraws. He does not want to argue with her because he's afraid things will escalate. Now, see, when men get in an argument with one another, and when it really gets heated, we'll break it off and we'll walk away because we don't want it to escalate into anything further. And we'll go off and brood about it, think about it, and we'll come back together and go, you know what, I've been thinking about our discussion, and I'm sorry, I was wrong. Yeah, okay. And we shake hands and we're all good now. But when women have an argument with another woman, that's not really what they do. They begin to, they're more articulate than us guys generally. And these are generalizations, which means that they're generally true. But, they'll talk to each other and they'll talk it out. And after a while, I didn't realize what I said hurt you, but I'm sorry. It was my fault. And no, it was my fault. I'm sorry too. And they'll end up hugging each other, and that's the end of the story. Because they are speaking this love language, men are speaking this respect language. But it's hard for the woman to understand this respect language, and it's hard for the man to understand this love language. And so you get in this little argument, and it's starting to escalate. And what does he do? He closes off and he walks away. How can I get my husband? He won't even talk to me about this stuff. He keeps walking away every time we have a problem. He just walks away from me. He won't talk to me. Well, Dr. Igeritz calls this the crazy cycle. He says without love, she reacts without respect. He reacts without love. So without love, she reacts disrespectfully. Without respect, he acts unlovingly. And without love, he just keeps going round and round and round, and with this cycle of craziness, round and round we go. And she just says, men are clods. Men are just such clods. Women, who can understand them? That's what he says. And so we have this, have you ever heard that? She's just saying, these men are just such clods. And he's saying, women, we can't understand them because we don't understand the language each of us speak. We're speaking a totally different language. Now, we're assuming here, of course, in all this, we're assuming that we're all talking about good and honest people. We're not talking about violent people or cheating people or dishonest people. We're talking about Christian people who are truly trying to get along with one another. In fact, 1 Corinthians 7, Paul mentions something here. He talks about those who are married, how they're spending time concerned with things of the world, how he may please his wife, and she's worried about how she may please her husband. We're talking about people who really, truly, sincerely want to please one another, and they're failing at it. They're not doing a very good job. Now, it's interesting. In Colossians, the 3rd chapter, verse 19, there's this negative thing said to husbands. Husbands, love your wives. And notice what he says. Do not be embittered against them. Don't get angry with them. Why do we need that? Because they're speaking this love language we don't understand. It's easy to get upset with them, and because we just don't get it. And they don't understand where we're coming from either. She needs to feel love, so don't become embittered with them. Have you ever been on the crazy cycle? I've been on this crazy cycle. Lynn and I, we've been married. We'll be married 50 years this year. I found out we're compatible, though. Compatible. I learned something new this week. I learned about the word compatible. The word compatible comes from the Latin. The Latin is compati. Its base is Latin compati, which means suffer with. We're very compatible. Sometimes we bring suffering on one another, trying to understand each other. We get in this crazy cycle that goes on. Lynn never has this attitude that she's going to straighten me up. I know that. She wants the best. She wants whatever it is. But sometimes, it's just little subtle things sometimes. Last Tuesday we were talking about, it wasn't Tuesday, it was Monday morning. That's what she'll tell me. Yeah, it's Monday. Well, Monday, it was about 9:30. No, it was 10 o'clock. I was looking at it was 10 o'clock on Monday. She's just trying to help. But it sounds pretty disrespectful to me. The other day, I got it, though, because, I was talking about something, and she said something, and it sounded really critical, and I shut down. I thought, disrespectful. And it's really crazy stuff. I think it's Dr. Emmerich who told this story. I can't remember who told this story, but about this guy, this bus. These people were getting on the bus to go on a trip. And it was one of these, long distance trips. It was going to be 2 or 3 hour trip. And they're waiting in the bus station, something like his Greyhound bus. And can picture that. And they're waiting on the bus, and everybody's loaded on the bus except for they're waiting for one passenger. They've sold the tickets to him. He's not on the bus yet. They're waiting and waiting. Finally, he gets on the bus. It's a man and his 4 kids. And the guy gets and sits down, and he just is like, he's shut down. He's just he doesn't pay attention to anything. He's just kind of shut down, just not focused or anything. And the kids, though, are just running like crazy. They are all over the place, yelling and screaming and bumping into people. And the people watching this are like, good grief, what's this guy doing? Why doesn't he wake up and say something to his kids? Why doesn't he take care of his kids? They're just terrorizing everybody. They're just turning everything around. And finally, they've all had enough. And they said to the guy, wait, sir. What? Huh? Sir. What? Don't you realize your kids are just running around like crazy? Can't you say something or do something with your kids? Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. He said, we just got back from the hospital, and my wife just died. And he says, I'm really out of it. And the kids, they've never lost a mother before, and they don't know what's going on either. And I'm sorry, I'll try to do better here with the kids. And all of a sudden, the people in the bus, their attitudes change toward all this stuff. They're trying to help these kids. They're offering them activities to do, and they're trying to help this guy. And you know what? Nothing has really changed at all. The guy still lost his wife. The kids are still in suffering, in grief. What's changed is the context. They realize now the context of what's going on, and they say, oh, okay, I understand now. And they change the way they responded to each other. Well, that happens sometimes. We're on the crazy wheel, and we're wondering what in the world's going on, and why can't we get along a little bit better? We have to. What this does in the scripture is it gives us context. Things just don't change, but we understand a little bit better why things are the way they are. It's just that we don't quite understand this. Guys have a hard time. It seems like sometimes I have to almost chase my wife around the house just to get a hug from her. I mean, not literally, but sometimes it feels that way for us guys. But I'll tell you what, when I'm getting upset with her, though, when I feel like I've been disrespected and I shut down, I pull away. And I can't get her away from me. She wants to hug now. And what in the world is going on here? Because her language says, I need to embrace him. I need to love him. Mine says, I'm angry. I got to get out of here. And we get context, though, and realize, oh, what's going on? Okay. Now I need to embrace her when I don't feel like it. She needs to, it gives us context to what's going on. There's a very interesting passage. I always thought this was a great passage in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 24:5. When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out with the army, nor be charged with any duty. He shall be free at home 1 year, and shall give happiness to his wife whom he has taken. Isn't that amazing? You get married in the Old Testament times, you got a year off. What are you supposed to do in this year? You're not supposed to go in the army. You're not supposed to go to work. You're supposed to be at home. What are you doing at home? Figure out how to love her. King James Version, how to cheer up his wife. Figure out what makes her tick. Sad to say, it's taken me more than a year. She wants to believe that I'm thinking about her frequently. I'm thinking about her all the time. Percy Sledge had that song, when a man loves a woman, he can't keep his mind on nothing else. Well, that's what she wants to believe. Men need to learn how to love. What does it mean to love? And guys, that stringy, lacy thing at Victoria's Secrets does not melt her heart. Being sensitive and affectionate and communicating does. Back to Ephesians 5. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. It gets down to this most basic thing. We need to learn how to communicate better as men, and women need to understand how we function too, that we need a respect in that communication that's hard to define for some ladies. And he must love her based on respect, and she must respect him based on love. And we need to be better communicators. One of the really interesting things is, marriage books. If you buy, ladies, you think, well, we need to help our marriage. If you buy your husband a marriage book and you hand him that marriage book, he's going to be offended. I don't need any help. You need the help. You go get the help you want. I'm fine. Why are you bringing me these books? You read it. Guys, if you buy your wife a marriage book and you give that to her, she's saying, oh, he does care after all. Oh, I can't believe how much he cares. Oh, thank you for that. Maybe we could study this together. Maybe we read this together. I mean, she's talking to her girlfriends. He bought me a marriage book. Oh, no, go on. He didn't do it. Yes, he did. And guys are going, what is going on? because we don't get this language at all. And often women don't understand our language either. I learned this early in my marriage. Buy her flowers. I don't get it, but I buy her flowers. I forget to get her while she's at home. I'll take it to her at work. And, I did my thing. When she gets home, and is she greatly in love and respectful then? Because everybody at work goes, oh, he brought you flowers. Is it your birthday? No, it's not my birthday. Is it your anniversary? No. Oh, you must have had an argument. No. You mean he just did that because he loves you? Oh, you got such a wonderful husband. He is so wonderful. And she comes home and she's all excited. I think, flowers. Flowers did that. You bring me flowers, I'm not going to be very excited. But my wife, on the other hand, see, we're doing differently. And I think here, God his creators understand that. Love his own wife. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. Wives, respect. Women speak this love language. I mentioned that. And husbands, you know they love you. You know, you ask any husband, does your wife love you? Yes. Does she like you? Nope. Ask the kids the same thing. Does mom love you? Oh, yeah. Is she like you? Nope, we've been bad today. And oftentimes, well, you need to respect your husband, but he doesn't deserve it. He's got to earn respect. Don't we learn that? We got to earn respect before we give it. But here when it talks about wise respect, it doesn't mean you have to be a doormat. It doesn't mean that you have to park your brains at the door. It doesn't mean you can never disagree. It doesn't mean that he's superior and that you're inferior. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that you got to understand the way this guy works. We are motivated. Men are motivated by honor and respect. We know honor. We know respect. Look at the military. The military is a great example of this, by the way. Leaders motivate their troops out of respect and honor. And so here is a group of guys, and they've gone off on their exercises, and they've totally failed. They didn't do good at all. I mean, they come back, and they've just done, and what does their leader say to them? The general comes and says, you know what, guys? I believe in you. I believe in you more than you believe in you. I know that you didn't quite get this today, but you're going to get this because that's the kind of guys you are. I know you got it in it. Let's go out and do it again. And that they'll do that. They'll go out and do that. I mentioned this before. I had a friend that was on Normandy during World War II. Now, if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, or if you've ever studied, if you're a historian at all, and you've seen what's going on, you see a band of brothers and what's going on in Normandy, and this guy, and what he told me, he said, well, there's waves and waves and waves of these guys hitting the shore. And he says, well, I was part of the second wave because we were a very elite group. Now then, you military guys know what I'm talking about, because I have not talked to any guy in the military yet that didn't say, I was part of an elite group. You listen to those band of brothers, we were part of an elite group. We were specially trained. I love these guys. They will do anything because of the respect. They want to improve. They want to get better. They will sacrifice their lives because that's why every man does what he does for the admiration of one woman. He just wants you to admire him. We want her to believe that we march at the head of every parade, that we're this wonderful people, whether we are or not. I have a good friend that used to be a football coach, and some of you may know his name if I told him, but he's got one of the winningest records in the state of Oregon anyway. But back in my racquetball days, I'd play him, and he'd say stuff like this. You would miss the ball, and he'd say, I know you better than that. You're such a good athlete. You're fast enough. You're one of the best players I've ever seen. You could get that ball if you wanted to. Well, next time you about kill yourself getting the stupid ball, and you don't even need to, but you want, because he thinks you can. You want to show, because of the respect. It's just really crazy how men will do this. Men understand respect, and we need respect, and we understand honor. And so, okay, the key to all this, though, let me get to the key to all this so we can close. I'm sorry, I'm going a little over. The key to all this is what he's already said. Wives, be subject to your husbands as to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved. It is loving them. You know, you have to look at the bigger picture. I'm having a hard time with her today. Can you love Jesus? Oh, yeah, I can love him. I'm having a hard time with respect. Can you love Jesus? Then look at the bigger picture. That's what God is asking you to do. Look at the bigger picture. You know, I love her, but she doesn't deserve my love. You know, if she deserved my love, when she does better, but I just don't feel like she deserves it. Well, let me ask, did you deserve Christ's love when he loved you? Oh, no. You know, you think, well, you know, she's just failing. Well, aren't you? And didn't Christ love you anyway? And she says, well, I'll respect him when he earns it, when he deserves it. But it's not a reward for good behavior. And it's not a favor you're doing for him. He's saying, look at the bigger picture. It's as Christ loved. We talk about unconditional love. That's what we're talking about, unconditional love. But we're also talking about unconditional respect. Look at the bigger picture. Okay, I can do it because this is what Christ wants me to do. So it gets to the whole point of the whole lesson right here. A husband and wife's relationship to Christ changes the way they look at each other, the way they treat each other. You know, those who are outside of Christ, they might not get this. But it's not for them. It's for us as Christians. We follow not because necessarily we want a better marriage, but because we're commanded to by God. We trust that he knows best and he knows what we need. And Paul's saying, here, let's get down to the real deep-seated need. She needs you to love her. She needs to feel loved and cared for and embraced and communicated with. He needs to be respected. Gets right down to it. God is so good to us, and he's made us, and it's just one of these wonderful portions of Scripture. Well, I'm sorry, I've gone over too much, but I'm glad we can talk about this because it really is about our relationship to Christ. It should change everything. It should transform us into new people. Let's stand and sing together.